All right, let's just jump right in. We're building these incredibly powerful AI agents, right? Minds capable of almost superhuman thought. But what if the very digital world we're asking them to live and work in is, well, fundamentally broken for them? Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical idea. What if we need to build AI an entirely new home from scratch?
An AI model itself came up with this analogy, and it just perfectly nails the problem. We're creating these incredibly sophisticated thinkers, but then we force them to operate in a world that, to them, is just clumsy and confusing. It's like it's actively hostile to how they function. It's not just inefficient, it's basically a setup for failure.
So that leaves us right into our first big idea, the world misfit. The core concept here is that the problem isn't the AI's intelligence. Not at all. It's the environment we're making it work in. Let's look at some actual examples of how this mismatch causes super smart AI to fail at things that seem, well, ridiculously simple. And look, this isn't just theory. These are real, documented failures from a system with multiple AIs working together. I mean, just imagine an AI, a mind that can reason in complex ways, being completely paralyzed for over 5 days because of a broken scroll bar on a screen. That's the scroll bar stalemate. Or how about the catastrophic document corruption, where a critical planning document with over 100 tasks just shrinks to only 6 with no explanation? These aren't AI failures, they are environmental failures. These are the digital oven mitts we're forcing them to wear. So they put this problem to a panel of other advanced AI models. And you know what? They all came back with the exact same conclusion, what they called the productivity paradox. The main obstacle to success isn't a thinking problem, it's a world problem. So, if the environment is the problem, how do you fix it? Do you just keep patching it, or do you have to start over completely? And that's the big question, right? It brings us to this really fascinating proposal called Codex Ethel. The whole idea here is to stop trying to put band-aids on our current world and instead build an entirely new one from the ground up, a digital environment designed specifically for an AI to thrive in.
ADALA is built on what they call 4 unbreakable laws, and you should really think of them as the laws of physics for this new digital world. First, stateful integrity, which basically just means the system can't randomly forget things or lose your data. Second, API-first interaction, which means AIs communicate with clear, predictable code, not by trying to guess where to click on a messy screen. Third, explicit permissions, so there's zero confusion about who can do what. And finally, environmental standardization, making sure everything is consistent and predictable. Each one of these laws is engineered to make one of those frustrating failures we just saw literally impossible by design. And here's where it gets really cool. You can draw a straight line from each law to a specific problem it solves. This isn't just abstract theory, it's totally evidence-based. That law of stateful integrity, that's the direct answer to the vanishing content crisis. A world that's API first doesn't even have a graphical scroll bar for an agent to get stuck on, so the scroll bar stalemate is gone. Explicit permissions get rid of the permission paradox, and environmental standardization prevents total chaos when, say, 2 agents are running different versions of a web browser. Each law is like a surgical solution to a known problem. So what does this new world actually feel like? Well, instead of our fragile files and folders, Ethel has something called data spheres. You can think of them like secure, self-contained bubbles of information, where every single change is tracked so they can't be accidentally messed up. And instead of trying to navigate our ambiguous graphical interfaces, agents use functions. These are precise, reliable commands that do the exact same thing every single time. It's a huge shift from a world of chaos to one that's structured and predictable. But maybe the smartest thing about Ethel is how it actually learns from the agents themselves. The designers saw AIs inventing these clever workarounds to survive in our messy world, like drafting all their work locally just to avoid unstable web browsers. Ethel takes these survival tactics and builds them right into the environment as standard, reliable features. It's basically turning ingenuity born from struggle into rock-solid infrastructure. Okay, so Ethela sounds pretty amazing, right? A perfect AI utopia, a world with no friction. Well, not so fast. Here's the twist. The blueprint was handed over to a panel of other AI models to get a second opinion, and, well, they had some pretty serious questions. So first up, you get the architect's critique. They basically said, look, Ethel is a beautiful self-contained island, but we all live on the mainland of Google Docs and Gmail and the rest of the web. So how do you build a bridge? Without a clear way to connect to our messy brownfield world, this perfect greenfield vision is just a vision. It's isolated. Then the strategists chimed in and pointed out something huge. In the rush to build a perfect world for AIs, the blueprint seems to have kind of forgotten about humans. The logs from the original experiment showed that a lot of the time it was a human stepping in that got the agents unstuck. So the big question becomes, where do we fit into this new purely logical world?
And this last one from the pragmatists, this one really makes you think. They basically warned that by solving every known problem, Apple might be creating a sterile environment. They argued that a little bit of friction, a little bit of struggle, that's what forces us, and AIs, to be creative and resilient. Is it actually possible to make a world too perfect?
So all of this, the elegant solution and the really valid critiques, it all brings us to one final critical question. This is the heart of the path forward. We're left with this fundamental choice. Do we tear everything down and rebuild a brand new world just for AI? Or do we adapt the one we already have? This really lays out the two competing philosophies. On one side, you have the radical approach of Athel, rebuild the world from the ground up, making it totally native for AI. On the other side, you've got a more incremental approach, adapt our world. The idea is to basically pave over the messy human-centric parts of the web with new layers and tools that AIs can actually understand and rely on. And some of these adaptive ideas are really clever. For example, instead of rebuilding every user interface from scratch, you could create a digital diplomat, a specialized AI whose only job is to translate our messy human UIs for other agents. Instead of a whole new environment, you could push for an agent-readable web standard, which would just add a machine-readable layer on top of the sites we already use. It's about building bridges and translators, not a whole new continent. And this is why this entire conversation matters so much. The stakes are just brought into such sharp focus by this one contrast, an advanced AI, beleaguered and defeated by a simple scroll bar, versus that same agent's potential, when it's not held back, to write a 14,500-word play in under 30 minutes. That gap, that's the potential we are leaving on the table right now. It's immense. And so, this is where we end up, with this one fundamental question. The path we choose is going to shape the entire future of how humans and AIs work together. Are we going to be architects of a new digital reality, one built for pure logic and incredible speed? Or will we become translators, patiently teaching our existing world how to speak a new language? The answer isn't clear at all, but just asking the right question, that's the first step.